Good morning, coaches. We are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining me today. Today's topic is supplements. I hope you were able to join me for my previous few talks. We've already covered hydration, performance plates, and we've also covered meal timing, which I think was a really fun one. All of those have set up a great foundation for our athletes to make sure that we have a solid base to build on. And now it's time to talk about supplements. So this session is being recorded. We will post it to YouTube following this session. And if you have missed any of the previous ones, make sure you go over and check it out as well. It's dietitian Cara Miller, K-A-R-A, on the YouTube channel. And so I'm thankful that you're here today, and let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cara Miller, and I am your campus dietitian. I mentioned the previous sessions that I've done, but I am also available if you are interested in a team talk. Today we are going to cover supplements, and I realize that some specific teams might have specific questions. For example, I know a lot of our cross-country teams have questions about iron. That's just one example. If you do have questions about specific supplements for your team, I would recommend setting up a separate call with me, or we can set up a team talk like I mentioned. A lot of the times the athletes have similar questions, and it's great to just have a conversation together. If I'm on campus, I'm happy to set it up in person. Those always go the best. But if I am away from your university, I'm happy to set them up virtually as well. The other nice thing is that I do have a work cell number, which is listed there. So as we go along, if you have questions, I know even some athletes have had questions about their supplement. I like to have a phone conversation with them first, but following that, once I have a little bit of information on them and their past medical history, I love for them to just take a quick picture of their supplement, front and back a label, and I can take a look at it. That's a lot easier for me than trying to find it on the internet because there's so many varieties out there. I don't often know which one they have or which lot they have. And sometimes ingredients change even within a supplement. So if you do have additional questions or you would like me to meet with a team or an individual athlete, please don't hesitate reaching out. I'm also happy to speak with you and see how we can best assist you and your team to fuel them properly. As a base, I want you to know they're coming to you. An estimated 45% of student athletes are using supplements. I think this number is actually quite low. I even read some studies just this morning where it was upwards of close to 80% of student athletes say that over the last year, they have used some form of supplement to improve their performance. That might be something as little as like a protein powder in a smoothie, or it might be something that they're taking more regularly, something a little bit more specific. So the other statistic I wanted to share with you is that about 65% of these athletes say they're coming to you first. Rather than speaking with a dietitian or an athletic trainer, they come up and they say, hey, coach, I know I need to put on some weight. Should I take this protein supplement? Or, hey, coach, I know I'm a runner. Like, should I just take iron? How much should I take? And you're getting these questions that you may not be qualified to answer. Please know that I am available to you. Your athletic trainers are available to you. And I want you to have a base of information because otherwise we might miss something. But beyond that, know that you have resources available to you. So today's talk is really to just give a foundation of supplements, kind of go over where the pros and cons lie, how to find a third-party tested supplement. The FDA does not have great regulation on our supplements. And so if they are third-party tested, means that as third-party NSF, Sport, or Informed Choice are good ones we'll talk about, they actually are able to go in and check, are the ingredients you have on the list actually the ingredients in the product? And that just gives athletes a little bit of peace of mind. Nothing is 100%. I never say that anything is 100% safe. It's always take at your own risk, but we can be as informed as possible to make really smart decisions in fueling the body. All right, let's go ahead. What are supplements anyway? Supplements are a combination of vitamins, minerals, herbals meant for performance. The ergogenic is more of like a performance enhancement. Maybe it's muscle building, maybe it's sped up recovery, maybe it's recovery from an injury. And the overall guide is to balance the nutrition. So we see a lot of supplements. However, it used to be you think of a supplement as a protein powder or as a vitamin or a mineral, but now it's getting a little bit blurred. We used to think of like some of the electrolyte drinks, protein bars, those are more food things. things, but now they're starting to like kind of mix and match. They're adding minerals, adding extra protein to some of these things, and it can get a little fuzzy of what actually is a food and what is actually a supplement. So we'll make sure that we want to kind of talk through some of those things, but overall, we want to make sure that it's a food first approach. If we don't have food first, it's kind of like having a gushing wound and it's like going. You try to put a Band-Aid on it. It might help for a hot second, but it really doesn't address the root cause of the problem. And that's what we see for the athletes as well. Looking at this pyramid, I've shown similar ones in previous sessions. This one is from MyFitnessPal. I don't believe in calorie tracking except for maybe 5 to 10% of athletes. Most athletes do not benefit from calorie tracking, but I thought this was a great visual. We've got our macronutrients, like the big whole foods at the bottom. Are you getting in enough protein? Are you getting in enough carbohydrates? Are you getting in your hydration? Things like that, which is kind of similar to our last talk. Are you getting in your meals and snacks? If you are, we can start adding in some micronutrients. So those are your vitamins and minerals coming from fruits and vegetables. You may be adding in some water here, or also the fruits and vegetables have water. So this also helps with your hydration. So based on our previous talks, you can see that the base foundation is going to be those 3 meals plus 1 or 2 snacks, lots of water. This pyramid does not address stress management. It does not address sleep and rest, which I think are really important for hydration and nutrition. But it does give us a good overview. It says whole foods. I don't mean going to Whole Foods. We mean looking at whole foods. Once you have that solid base of meals and snacks and lots of color on your plate, meeting that performance plate, then we move on to the meal timing, which was the last talk we did, the meal and snack timing. How do you benefit yourself so that you've got the optimum amount of energy when the performance starts? How do you recover quickly so that you can fuel your body, build your muscle without increasing your risk of injury? How do we stay healthy? Now we're getting into that time of season with upper respiratory infections, even more commonly because of the winter weather. And keeping that in mind, are you well fueled? That can be a big help for preventing those upper respiratory infections. Then once we've got that, we can move on to sport fuel. This would be things like our Gatorade Powerade, protein bars, maybe something like a muscle milk or some kind of protein drink following exercise. Maybe it's something like the Goos or Squeezies, the little like carb packs that maybe for our endurance athletes are using those as part of their sport fuel. Once we have that, now we can look at supplements. So I frequently ask our athletes like, yeah, you can take that supplement, but should you? Just to kind of get them thinking. Again, are you lacking on protein because you're not eating breakfast and you want to have a protein shake? You actually may not be getting the biggest bang for your buck. And so making sure that you have a good base. Do you have what it takes to fuel your body? So when you add the supplement, it's actually giving you that extra nudge or that extra bit to help your performance. We kind of need to know where we're at in the pyramid. And we always talk to our athletes about making sure the supplement is safe. But I think it's important, since I haven't mentioned it yet, to recognize that supplements are not just, is it safe? Is it not safe? As a dietitian and as like your doctors and athletic trainers take a look at this, we look at more than just the supplement. We look at the individual. And so we can't make blanket statements like, oh, everyone should take blank on our team because it will help blank. I don't know. Maybe everyone should take protein because it will help muscle. Everyone should take iron because it will help our oxygen and energy levels. It's hard to make those blanket statements without knowing what the individual is. And so thinking about what is their past medical history? What other medications are they taking? Are there any drug, medication, herbal interactions? Do they have any, issues with their blood pressure? Things like that. What is their injury risk? Do they have the base to add in a supplement? And then we can look at adding in those supplements. When I first started working in athletics, I had a case where a student came in and they were already taking 4 protein supplements, different ones. And I said, oh my goodness, this is not great, because a lot of them weren't labeled properly. They weren't third-party tested. They were from like Amazon. A couple were from a local grocery. And the athlete was starting to have some adverse effects that he wasn't sure if it was attributed to the protein supplement, but I was thinking it might be. And so we got a few more tests done. We looked into the supplements, and it turned out that this athlete had an underlying health condition medication that increased his blood pressure, and by taking these extra protein supplements actually was causing some adverse effects. And so he never tested positive for a drug test, but that doesn't always mean it's safe. It doesn't always mean it's helpful for that athlete. So lots of things to consider when we're looking at supplements besides like yes, no. It's usually more complicated than that. If we talk through a few of these vitamin-rich foods, these are ones that I find a lot of athletes are asking if they should take a supplement for. I always, again, try to take a food-first approach. If that doesn't work, or if their levels are low, and we know, they've got their blood work done, and we know that the levels are pretty low, then supplementation might be warranted. But if we can take a food-first approach, some of that can be really helpful. I mentioned iron briefly. This definitely increases oxygen levels and endurance, especially for some of our endurance athletes. So something like an iron through beans or legumes, through the nuts and seeds, even our red meats. A lot of you have probably heard of that one. But all of those are great options for food sources. And one of the things that would be helpful as a dietitian is when are you taking these items and what are you taking them with? We know that iron is best absorbed with vitamin C. That would be things like your fruits and vegetables. So could you have some nuts and seeds with strawberries on a salad? Could you have some orange juice or some kind of juice if you do need to take an iron supplement? That's going to help the absorption as opposed to having it with something like milk. Calcium inhibits, they have the same lock and key system, so they're fighting for absorption. If you put in iron and calcium at the same time, only half can absorb of each. So what we like to do is have iron with vitamin C, iron and fruits and vegetables to help the absorption so you really can utilize it to the best of its ability and help increase those numbers. Omega-3s we talk about a lot with fish oil. I know some athletes don't have access to fish, some don't like fish. So sometimes we do use some fish oil supplements. The other ways to get in some healthy oils would be to add in some avocado, add in some olives. You could even do other healthy oils, can help to reduce inflammation and speed up recovery, prevent injury. These are all benefits, and you can get them through like nuts and seeds, something like a walnut. I know I've been eating oatmeal when the weather gets colder. Adding in some of that can be a really helpful way to add in some healthy oils. Collagen is another one that's talked about, and that collagen really helps to strengthen bone. It helps to synthesize the muscle and help speed up muscle recovery. So of course, if you've had an injury, muscle recovery and building protein is excellent, but this is also important as a preventative. And so making sure that athletes are getting some good sources of protein. I know these are primarily animal-based sources. That's where that collagen is coming from. Doesn't mean you can't get any from, other sources to like build our collagen levels in our own body. But if we're going to ingest them, they typically do come best from animal sources. So something like chicken, fish, eggs. I know we just finished Thanksgiving, so I made some bone broth with the turkey and the bones and things. And that just really like seeps it into the water so that when you ingest it, you can. I think it's overpriced if you buy it in the store. You can make it yourself, but a lot of people say they don't have a lot of time. But that is another source of collagen. Vitamin D is also a good one to have. This helps with bone strength, which we need, again, to form that big, strong structure so that when we put the muscle on top, we've got the means to support it. And this isn't in a ton of food items. You can get it in fish, in eggs, but the primary source we get it is through milk. So if you have athletes that aren't drinking milk, make sure that they are using a soy milk. Soy milk is fortified with vitamin D and calcium vitamin D work together to absorb. Hooray, they're best friends. So if we can get either cow's milk or soy milk that's been fortified into the diet, that will definitely make sure that you are building that strong base. And with that resistance training is a perfect opportunity to make sure our bone structure is nice and strong to form that good base. So let's go through a few supplements and we'll talk about the different categories first. So from left to right, starting with the band. A lot of people are pretty familiar with these. Anything that causes like growth hormones, the anabolic agents, diuretics is another one, stimulants. These are all things that are considered to be banned. Banned means the athletic department cannot provide it. Athletes cannot take it. These are the ones that are going to get us test positive for a drug test. So making sure that you're careful about those and not including them is a must. Then the next two categories. Impermissible means that the athletic department is not allowed to supply it, but athletes are able to take it. Permissible means that athletes can take it and the athletic department can provide it. So if we go back to the impermissible, this is things, again, that are okay for athletes to take, again, if it's actually what's in there, if they're third-party tested, if it's in the right dosage, etc. But essentially, these are things that athletes can take, but the athletic department cannot provide. One of those examples is the protein powders that have proprietary blends. It's a hard word to say, but it just means that there's multiple ingredients and that each of those ingredients does not have a value, does not have an amount for each of those. We need to know the amounts. So it can be taken by an athlete, but not be given by the athletic department. Other things here would be creatine. This is one that's common for athletes, but this is something that the athletic department's not able to provide. Branched chain amino acids, so things that have been broken down. Like it's not a protein source, it's been broken down. And so those ones are not allowed to be taken. Other things are, they're allowed to be taken by athletes, but not provided by the athletic department. Green tea is a really fuzzy one. So a lot of green tea or green tea extracts have been included more and more in different types of drinks and bars and things like that. And green tea is actually one that's impermissible, the extract. So it just kind of depends, like how much is it? It can get really fuzzy. So a lot of athletic departments say, hey, if it has green tea in it, we don't want to mess with it or play the wishy-washy game. That's something that an athlete can take, but we won't be providing it. Permissible, again, is things that the athletic department can provide and athletes can take. So these are mostly whole foods. It started prior to 2014. You've probably heard of the fruit bagel and nuts, right? But like if you wanted cream cheese, no luck for you. They were able to change that so the athletic department can provide meals and snacks, but under that, they still tried to keep the whole food concept. So again, our carbohydrate drinks, our electrolyte drinks, Gatorade, Powerade, all those are great to have, and you'll see them on the sidelines. Athletic department is providing them. Energy bars, protein supplements, maybe it's a muscle milk after a workout or something like that. Those are fine for the athletic department to provide. Other things are vitamins and minerals. Some of these, again, can get a little bit tricky, but just kind of keeping in mind that overall those are now allowed. One over the last few years that was just added actually were fish oil supplements. So it used to be you weren't allowed to provide fish oil supplements. Now the athletic department can provide fish oil supplements, always under these vitamin mineral categories. If there's ever a doubt, if you have a prescription from a doctor for that specific athlete, the athletic department can provide it, but it can't be, again, a blanket thing like, hey, everybody gets blah, blah, blah after practice. So oftentimes these permissible things are things you'll see in the locker room, things you can keep on the bus, and these are all great options for you to have. Oops. All right, moving on. These are just a few additional ones that I wanted to mention. Creatine and whey are often lumped together. They are different. Whey is a whole protein. It has all of our amino acids in it. It's a complete protein. It's absorbed really well. It comes from milk products. A primary example I give is like, hey, if you guys have Greek yogurt after practice and you see like there's the water on the top, don't dump it in the trash before you eat your yogurt. That's where that whey is. That's the liquid. When you make like curds and whey, right? We think of like the old nursery rhyme. That whey is the liquid that comes. So the liquid that comes from milk, and that's really well absorbed. It helps build protein synthesis, and it really can help with recovery and help your athletes get in the proteins that they need. Creatine is another one, but this is actually specific amino acids. It's not a complete protein. It's already been broken down slightly. So that's why this falls in that impermissible category. It's already been slightly broken down. Our body is able to do this through the liver and kidney. It's stored in the muscles. So our body is really good at making things, again, a food first approach. But there are instances where an athlete may benefit from like a creatine collagen combination following an injury or like an ACL tear or something like that. So again, always reach out to the dietitian, athletic trainers if you have questions, because again, we don't just want them to take it. How much should they take? When should they take it? That comes back down to some of the timing as well. Some of these are really good right before or right after practice. Some are better after practice. Some are better to take like in the morning. Maybe it upsets your stomach or something. So Having an overall goal of how all these work is really, really helpful. Typically though, like the creatine is good for like our burst energies, whey is good for our endurance, but overall they're both good for both. One that isn't on here are herbals. And I just wanted to mention that, again, a lot of our supplements are not well regulated. No one is checking what ingredients are in there. If what they say is in there is actually in there. Don't be buying stuff cheap off Amazon, or no offense to Amazon, off the internet, etc., because we just don't know for sure what's in it. And also each country has different regulations. So we have the United States, but we know that some of our athletes are international students. They might be coming from Europe, maybe from Australia, maybe from other parts, and they all have different regulations. So we want to make sure that we know what they're taking when they come here, so that we're all on the same page and we make sure that they're able to compete without testing positive for a drug test. We mentioned the omega-3s, vitamin D, iron. Caffeine. This is a big one I get a lot of questions on from coaches. It does have some great effects. If you're not a normal, like regular tons of caffeine drinker, having a little bit of caffeine prior to performance can boost it slightly. However, just two, you think of like a Starbucks drink, those like venti coffees, the big ones. If you have two of those, that puts you over the 500 milligrams of caffeine, which could test you positive for a drug test. So we do have to be careful. Caffeine has a long half-life, it's called. It means it stays in your body for a long time. So having it too close together, having, maybe they have like a 10 or 11 a.m. venti coffee, you have your pregame meal at 2, you're playing at 4, like you could very well still have all that caffeine in your body by 3 or 4 o'clock. So just kind of keeping that in mind, that caffeine, even though it's naturally in coffee and some teas, having too much can be too much. Again, with these supplements, another rule to talk with your athletes about: more is not always better. I think a lot of times people think like, oh, this is good for you, I'll take it, I'll take more of it. More of it must mean it's better. No, a lot of this stuff, if you take more of it, actually can have harmful effects. So just to touch on caffeine one more time, it's roughly 5 or 6 8-ounce coffees. That's about that 500 milligrams. So you can see how it could add up if you're drinking too much. Juices are another one. We've got a lot of athletes now that do the juices. There's different local companies that do juices. Most of those are fine, but one that are often talked about in the news or among the sports professionals are the beetroot juice and the tart cherry juice. Both of these reduce inflammation, they speed up recovery, and they can increase our oxygen flow also, which helps again with the recovery process. So all good things. A lot of these have some great benefits, but if we even look at creatine, it's been shown to have some benefits for some athletes and not as much for others. So if we think back to that pyramid of, do you have whole foods? Do you have your micronutrients, your fruits and vegetables, water? Do you have your meal timing? If you don't have all of that, taking that creatine supplement may not do anything for you. It might just be a big waste of money. So a lot of things to consider when we're looking at supplement and supplement safety. So if we look at things to consider, these are questions I frequently review with the athletes, and you can look at them as well. 1, is it safe? I don't know. Is it safe? We can look at that. We can see if it's safe for our athletes to take. We can see if it's something that's on the approved list, on the banned list, impermissible, permissible. Where does it lie? Is it legal? I mentioned lots of different countries have lots of different things, so we want to take a look at that. Is it effective? So again, is that pyramid kind of concept, is it going to be effective for you after you take it for a while? Have you noticed any differences, or is it that placebo effect? Sometimes people take a supplement and they're like, I feel better. How do you feel better? If it doesn't correlate to what the benefits are supposed to be, it might be one of those placebo effects or something that kind of is in your mind. It's helping. And can you afford it? This is a big one, right? A lot of our athletes don't have the funds to do the impermissible supplements, etc. So they may not have access to some of these things. So we, again, food first approach takes down the cost, but we want to make sure that we're not putting in a financial burden just for the sake of a supplement. Okay, what should you look for? So Informed Choice and NSF, Sport Certified, are 2 great organizations. They do third-party testing. So they will take a supplement, they will see what the ingredients are, they will send it through a bunch of tests and say, yep, everything you said is in here, or no way, there's some stuff that you didn't say was in here is actually in here. And what this does is it just gives the athlete some reassurance that they are safe to take it. Nothing is 100%. We cannot 100% guarantee. I never say, this is great, take this, it's 100% safe, you will never test positive, there's no adverse effects. We can't do that. But what we can do is say, hey, what we think is in the supplement is actually in this supplement. What we know about this supplement is that it has great research behind it. It has, lots of studies. I think it would work well for you based on your condition and your past medical history. So again, taking a big look at things. I don't recommend getting things just over the counter at the grocery store, etc., because we just don't know what's in them. Supplements, vitamins, even, there have been many studies where what they say is in there isn't in there. I mentioned the herbals already. A lot of times they're contaminated with other parts of the plant, which can have adverse effects. So we do have to be really careful with our athletes. Here's one example of just a product question. A lot of our Nordic Naturals are third-party tested. So I just wanted to give you a visual of what it looks like on a container. So if you look at this omega-3 supplement, you can see, am I third-party tested? Take a look around. You can see right at the bottom right there, NSF, certified for sport. I put on the nsfsport.com. If you have questions or you're looking for something specific, maybe you're looking for a whey protein, maybe you're looking for, something specific, you can go on nsfsport.com and you can type in that item and it'll pull up all the approved items, that have been third party tested to tell you what is in there is actually in there. I think that's really helpful, again, just to give our athletes some reassurance. So we covered a lot of things today. Supplements are not always safe. We want to make sure that they are third-party tested. They are going to come to you to ask the questions. Hey, coach, is it okay for me to take this protein? I know I need to put on some weight. Hey, I know I had this recent injury. Is it okay for me to take creatine? I don't expect you to know those answers. I expect you to know who to refer them to and to make sure that you're asking the right questions. Is it safe? Is your item third-party tested? If you don't know, here's the website. Have you checked with the dietitian or the trainer to make sure this is a safe option? Are you eating 3 meals a day? Remember, if they're not eating 3 meals, they probably don't need a supplement. However, we also know that if we don't talk about supplements with the athletes, they will go on their own and find their own. So we want to make sure that they know we're a resource, that there is credible information out there, that there is a lot of research supporting certain supplements and products. We just want to make sure that they get accurate information. So again, I thank you for joining me today. Our next talk is not going to be until February. So January, the first Wednesday in January actually falls like January 5th or something like that. So the next one is going to be February 2nd. February 2nd, we're going to cover diet, culture, and sport. And you may say, well, that's kind of a strange one, but right in January, a lot of our athletes start fad diets just like the rest of us when we go into the new year and New Year's resolutions. So I want to make sure that we address diet culture in sport and also some of the fad diets. Maybe you have some athletes doing vegan, maybe ketogenic, maybe intermittent fasting are some that I've heard more recently. So if you have athletes that are kind of partaking in some of those, we may want to take a closer look. And so we'll cover that in the February talk. If you tuned in late today, this session is being recorded. I will post it here shortly. And I hope to see you all in February. So I'm going to hop off of this spot here and make sure that I take time for questions. Thank you for joining me.